Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining our webinar this morning. From physical to digital, make your paper office dream a reality for cities. Today we have presenting Mary Martin, who is an ECM event manager, as well as myself, Jeff Slack. I am an ECM specialist.
Thanks, Jeff. And I want to add one thing. What we're going to share today is experience that Jeff and I have seen over the years in the market. Jeff's been in the industry 13 years. I've been in over 20. So it's been an interesting time that we're dealing with now. And we'll share some of the things that we've learned and things that hopefully will help you face the challenges ahead. And here's where we're heading, the top 6 things, as you can see there, from scattered information on down to bottlenecks, FOIA, I know that's your favorite, productivity, communication problems, and of course, technology. Now, it's been interesting in our new world that we're working in. Paper was always a challenge in the offices, being in file cabinets and basements, scattered all over the place. But now I'm hearing stories about people who had to go back to the office 4 times to grab pieces of paper. I can almost hear you nodding your heads out there. Some of you may have made those trips. Electronic information and emails, they're on individual workstations. You know the people in your offices. I worked with a person who used to have between 10 and 12,000 unopened emails in the inbox. The theory was that if they opened it, it might have a virus, but it might be important, so they didn't want to delete it. Now, if you need to get a critical piece of information for the city out of that, would you like to go through all of that mess? Probably not. So the problem is people who store it on their personal hard drive or drives on their workstations, you can't get to that information anymore. And of course, approvals and signatures for workflow. We were recently working with a city here in the state, and they shared their process prior to the shutdown was to take invoices when they came in. They get 100 plus in a week, walk them over to the mailboxes, put them in the paper in the mailboxes, and then when the staff came in, they would check their mailbox, approve them, walk them back to the person who pays the invoices. It worked, but not now. You can guess, right? Had to go look at doing something different. And of course, paper forms completed and sent in. Recently got a call on a school district. They were going to deploy a lot of Chrome notebooks to the students, had 800 forms that need to be signed and sent in. And their request to us was, do you have a scanner that will kill a virus? No, that's one in my 20-some years I haven't run into. So we came back with some other solutions for them I'll address later. But basically, you've got a camera on your phone, take a picture of that signed form and send it in. You don't have to have people sending paper in, but we'll talk about that a little later. Teammates, people are getting furloughed. They can't work for a variety of reasons. Who's picking up the slack on those people and taking over their job responsibilities? And then bottlenecks have always been a challenge in the office. I bet you're thinking of that one person, because it can be a person, who sits on things and doesn't pass them on. The worst story I ever heard was a person went on vacation, locked their office, and left a critical folder in the locked office, and no one had a key. And they needed the folder while they were on vacation. So what happens is you've got penalties potentially with FOIA, dissatisfied customers. It affects your customer service, period. And now that we're remote working, it's even gotten more of a challenge to get things approved and paid when everybody is scattered all over the place. And I know FOIA requests, out of curiosity, I went out and took a look at a lot of different websites out there, and there's everything under the sun being done. PDFs that need to be printed out and then completed. They have to be mailed, faxed, or delivered back in person. Not working well today. Fillable forms out there, but you still had to print it out when you got done, mail it, fax it, or deliver it. And there were a few that had forms to complete electronically and submit it to the city. The problem is the workflow. What happens when that form hits the city? Because oftentimes it may need to go to a number of departments along the way. And how do you move it? How do you track it? And what do you do with that? And we're going to talk about that today as well. And productivity always was a challenge in the office. It's even more so now that we've all gone remote a little bit. My favorite Mark Twain quote is, if you got something you need to do, treat it like a live frog. Eat the frog first. So hopefully you're working from lists out there of things that need to be done. And at the top of that list should be that one job, that one project that you don't want to do the most. Eat that frog first thing in the morning, and the rest will be a piece of cake. And the other challenge is we're working too much if we're working outside of the office. It's too easy to think of something when you can't sleep at 3 in the morning to wander back in, or maybe keep going through lunch, eat a sandwich at the computer. What happens is if you don't have a clear set of start and end times, you risk burnout. Walk away. And of course, distractions. I mean, homeschooling, animals, it can be any number of things that distract. One clue that I had years ago, I had a friend who worked from home, and she used to hang something on the door of her office. When the door was closed and that sign was hung there, the kids all knew that the only reason to disturb her was if they were bleeding. That's it. So set up what's a good interruption and what's not so your family or the people that live with you know. And of course, healthy habits can affect our productivity. We don't have to make that drive time anymore, so we sleep in. We hit the workstation a little bit later. Make sure that you get a balanced diet, you're getting your exercise and your sleep, and get some breaks in there. If you need to trick yourself into a break, when I finish this project, I'm going to go sit on the deck for 15 minutes in the sunshine. Communication was always a challenge even before we hit the situation we're in. And now there's more text, there's more emails, chatter, everything is moving quicker and faster. The problem is how we write and meant something to be doesn't mean that that's how it was received on the other end. And oftentimes it's not a good response on the other end. So think twice before you send something out and how you're going to do it. But more importantly, be proactive. If you receive something that you found a little questionable, get a hold of that sender, the person who sent it out, and ask them to clarify what they really meant to say. Let's talk about technology. Now, here's where I've heard some interesting stories. The VPN, virtual private networks, a lot of organizations had them. I heard of a lot of companies telling their people to go home in early March, and at 9 o'clock on Thursday night, everybody try and get on the virtual network. We need to see if it can handle everybody. In some cases it did, in some cases it didn't. The shared drive, I worked with one organization just recently. Everything was on a shared drive at the office. That worked fine then. Guess what happened when they hit the field? Didn't work so well. So if you're going to work remotely, embrace technology, but it's more than hardware. It's more than the laptops and the smartphones and all of that. There's apps out there, there's software. So let's take a look and explore that a little bit further. We're going to hit these 5 areas that you see here. We're going to talk about some tools to connect that workforce, how to access that data from anywhere, how to optimize your business process and take care of risk, and of course, collaboration, and finally, empowering your staff. Now, before I go any further, let's take a little break here. What's in a name? You've heard ECM used in the beginning when Jeff was doing the introductions. That stands for Electronic Content Management. You might know what we're talking about is document management, information governance. There's a lot of names out there, just like there is for the word car, auto, automobile, vehicle. The bottom line is, how are you accessing, controlling, and sharing your organization's information? What are you doing to secure it? That's the bottom line, no matter what you call it. Let's talk about those tools. Those people who had embraced cloud technology early on have done beautifully during this shutdown because the files are stored securely in the cloud. They're protected. The access rights are controlled. So if you're a manager, you get to see those electronic file cabinets that you have the rights to see. If you're maybe a support staff person, you may have limited rights. You can see them. You can't delete. The other great thing is everybody can connect, and you've got a unified process because they're coming in via a web browser to get to where they need to do the work that day. Now, the interesting thing is you're going to find sometimes in security, I'd almost put a bet that possibly the cloud is more secure than your server in the office. Here's why. Because the information is encrypted on the way to the cloud. It's encrypted while in the cloud. It's stored in your own information silo and not mixed with anybody else's. Plus, there's data replication. What that means is the information is stored probably in a server bank on the East Coast somewhere. How about in Iowa? Is the rest of it? It's kind of shared between the two. So if there is a power outage on the East Coast, you can still get your information in Iowa. a lot of great security. So what you've done is you've automated those common business practices. They're not doing manual data entry anymore. It's moving electronically through the organization. So now you can do things in a much more efficient way. And where we kind of see this really working is invoice approval, FOIA request, employee onboarding, and also dealing with records retention. Now, you heard me mention the word web client. All you need with a web client to get into the software, and this could be an on-premise solution or the cloud, both use web clients, is a web browser. Doesn't matter what it is pretty much. It could be Chrome, whatever it might be. You don't need to install a client program on your workstation. You don't need a virtual private network. In fact, if your kids are driving you crazy and you can get to your wireless in the driveway, with a web browser, you could actually be working in your car to get away from things if you wanted to. And mobile devices today, I'll tell you what, they're the new standard. They can do incredible things when it comes to document management. Initiate a workflow. Take a picture of that invoice or that receipt, and then kick off a workflow by automatically sending it up. It could even pull the index information from what you took a picture of and send it into the workflow for approval, maybe adding notes to it, and completing tasks all with your phone. It's amazing what you can do with a mobile device now. Now let's talk about capturing information, because information can be captured from just about anywhere. When you're back in the office, the copier works great. We can set up a hot button on the copier. In fact, Olivet College does this all across the campus. They use nothing but copiers to drive the information into their software solution. And what it does in their case, they put a cover sheet on top. So when they put it in the feeder on the copier, they hit the button, it looks at it and goes, oh, you belong to this office. I'm going to automatically index and store. But you could also use a document scanner to send it directly into the software. You could import electronic information, drag and drop. There's a number of ways I'll show you that you can do that. But the bottom line is you're much more efficient. You've sped up those business processes so you can streamline what people are doing. Email, you heard me talk about the person with a huge inbox. The problem with email is those critical emails are stored in somebody's folders or on their desktop. They're not with the information that it needs to be with in the software. So when you're using software, you can pick and choose what emails you store. So when you do a search, you bring back not only invoice information, for example, you can bring back any email correspondence that's been going back and forth regarding that. And electronic signatures. That has become critical in this work environment. In fact, one of our existing clients just sent me a note and said, hey, can we talk about bill of lading at the docks? They want electronic signatures. Those are now legally binding, and there's a lot of options out there for you to employ to use those along the way. And finally, let's talk about enabling collaboration. We've talked about what the software can do to make your staff more fast. Well, not more fast, that's bad English. How about this? Improve your processes and get fast, effective decision making. The two areas that were very important to people before the pandemic are even more so now, and that would be workflow. Because with workflow, everything is electronic. You heard me describe that process where they were literally moving paper into mailboxes. With a digitized solution, you now can scan that invoice in from the very beginning, route it to the employee that needs to be notified, that it needs to be approved. Now, it could be a task list. I'll show you that when I do a demo here, letting them know that there's work that needs to be done, that they need to make a decision on, approve, reject, whatever that might be. Or you could have it as an email with a link built into the email saying, hey, click on this, the invoice opens, and you can approve it or reject it or pass it on to somebody else as needed. The important thing is at any point along the way, management is going to be able to see what's going on out there, what's been completed, what's left to be done again out there. At any point, they have a handle on what's going on. Forms. Forms have been an important part of every organization's life along the route, but there's even more so now. You heard me talk about the school district with the forms they wanted to scan on a virus-killing scanner. Now, if you go to forms, you can do so much more because they can be submitted and driven automatically into a workflow, and people can attach information to that form before they send it in. In fact, let me show you something here. Here's a screenshot. Onboarding for employees in HR. I know a number of you are with HR out there. They can fill out, after you've hired them, an employee information sheet, and when they hit submit, it automatically can populate the W-4, emergency contact form, and the I-9. And you'll look on the right-hand side there, you can see everything is already there. The only thing that was stored ahead of time was the resume before this form was filled out. And we can make it dynamic, meaning they can't hit submit unless they fill in social security number. You can require certain fields to make sure the form is accurate before you get it. So what have we done? We've empowered your employees. They're more productive. They're not pushing paper anymore. They are happier because you've given them the tools that they need to work with to get the job done. You've enabled them. So let's do a recap of the benefits that we've talked about. Now you can securely access that electronic information in those electronic file cabinets from anywhere in the world. Forms can be completed electronically online and submitted with attachments as needed and move through a workflow. So everybody can do remote approvals and signatures, but the bottom line is you've given your staff the tools and information to work with by doing this. And the key is you're now future-proofing your organization. We're all hearing rumblings of this potentially coming back in the fall or in the winter. So now's the time to take a look at, okay, what have we learned from this experience and what do we need to do to make sure that we're in better shape maybe if this happens the next time? Future-proof your organization. Now, a little bit about Applied Imaging. What I love about our company is the fact that we have a number of software solutions available. So the advantage to that is it's not one software must fit everything that you need to do. We have a discovery call or meeting with you, sit down and talk about, or on the phone in these days, about what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, and then together we decide what the best software solution is for you. You see Canon there. We also have Canon document scanners we service, we take care of, provide. I've moved a lot of those into home offices in the last month or so, I can tell you that, where we're doing remote installs and training, and people are scanning from home. In fact, one of our clients decided to get that back file done by having one person in the office shooting things out to people in the field that need to be done while they're doing the back file scanning. So there's a lot of creativity going on out there right now. The bottom line is we've got your back. You may know us as a copier company, but you know we have a portion of the company called Shred Hub that can take care of destroying and taking care of those documents that you no longer need. And if you're working remotely, we can give you a secure bag, drop it off at the house on the porch or wherever, and you can fill it. We'll pick it up again, or you can drop it off at one of our offices because we're still working. We're a critical business, and we can take care of that for you. Backfile conversion I'm going to address in a minute here, but we also offer that because I promise you that backfile is still collecting and still sitting at the office for you. NetSmart would be our IT group. If you need help with your network, if you need assistance with anything related to the technology part of the world, we're there to help. We talked about doc management, but PrintSmart, managed print services. If you've got HPs, if you've got Lexmark, whatever you've got out there, we can help you manage them. So let's talk about backfile conversion. You heard me mention we have a segment of the company that does that and takes care of it. So we can help you with that backfile out there right down to the point because you're a city. You can take advantage with us of the special state contract pricing. Financing is available because sometimes that stops organizations right there with the cost because of the size of their backfile, basically. And we can even provide the staff if you'd like to do the scanning for you. Now, if you're looking at backfile, you have 3 different ways you can look at it. A complete conversion, meaning day forward, we go with the most active things and move out from there. And then I recommend going into 2019, 2018, and inching back into the old stuff from there. If you go back to 1905, you're going to be chasing a rabbit you can never catch. So current, inch back into the most recent things. Day forward, we're going to let the old stuff sit. We're just going to go day forward. My guess is you can't do this one because you've got some vital records that need to be kept forever. And my other one that I'm looking at here is called Scan on Demand. The best way I can describe that is if you haven't been to the doctor for 10 years, you walk in, they pull your hard copy file out and scan it into the software solution to get you back in the system. So as you pull files, you scan on demand and move them in. So I know what you're thinking. This is all great, but where do I start? Here's where you start. Start with your greatest area of pain, and I'll make you a bet that may have changed today from, say, 3 months ago, and decide where you want to focus first. I can tell you the city that was moving paper around into mailboxes, they know where they're starting, and that's exactly where it was. What needs to be stored? Take a look at hard copy, electronic information, email. What are you going to do with the back file? You're going to keep it the way it is now and deal with it later, or are you going to start tackling it right now? And of course, retention schedules. Are you adhering to those? Have things been put up for destruction that need to be? Take a look at that. And then finally, who needs access and how often? If you've got power users, they may need a client license of their own to get into the software, a web client license. But if you've got people who come and go, maybe they can share a license. So you need to kind of have a handle on that as well. And finally, get a free consultation or estimate from us. I guarantee you're going to be surprised at the low cost and how fast we can get a solution deployed, sometimes as quick as a few days, depending on how complex your solution might be.